Willis Patterson, and that's Frankie Patterson. They're both my wonderful grandparents, and he is a musician and she is a retired teacher.
So they lived certainly a very different life than what we lead today, and they've just been sharing their experiences with everybody. My father's a classical musician. My mom, like you said, is a math teacher, retired math teacher. So
It's my delight to be here in this wonderful facility you call your high school. Yeah, it's the equivalent of a lot of campuses I've been on in the South particularly. As they said to you, I'm a musician, singer, principally of concert and opera literature, but initially of jazz. And I still do a little jazz and almost no concert literature, opera literature at this age. But I'm originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan, University of Michigan. Was my location of college. At age 9, I was an usher in the Big House. Okay, the Big House is the name attributed to the University of Michigan football stadium. I ushered in there as a Boy Scout, and that was the way I became a lifelong Michigan fan, Michigan football fan, because I went to every game for free. And that ended after I left the Boy Scouts. I had to jump the fence to get in for free. Didn't get a chance to attend the Michigan football games until I became a student at the University of Michigan, and tuition included the football seasons. Well, Ann Arbor was a small town when I was born in 1930 that had about 27,000 people. And of that 27,000, perhaps there were some 700 or 800 African Americans, most of whom were working as domestics for the University Hospital or housekeeping. The women did laundry and housekeeping and babysitting. Opportunities for otherwise employment were almost nil. We had no professionals in the town, save for a doctor who had graduated from the University of Michigan Hospital or University of Michigan Medical School, but was unable to practice because the patterns of segregation and deprivation. I went from my high school a cappella choir experience into taking voice lessons, which I was able to afford as a result of working on a construction job in the summer at age 15. My voice lessons were $10 a lesson, and I'd saved up my money because I wanted to figure out how well I could fare as a singer. My first lesson with that $10 voice teacher was the last until I took voice as a student at the University of Michigan. I finished 2 degrees at the University of Michigan after having 4 years of service in the Air Force, which I went into immediately after high school. My service experience in the Air Force was a very interesting and very learning type of experience for me because I've never been in the South before. It was in March in Ann Arbor, which was very cold. As we progressed down south through Chicago and into St. Louis, it became increasingly warm, and in 3 days we were in a blistering hot temperature in San Antonio, Texas, and I needed to get a drink of water. Got off the train where we were told we'd be met by a person who would take us to the base. There was no one there for us at that time, so I went into the train station, Cavernous Place in San Antonio, Texas, and sought to get a drink of water. Saw a nice white marble fountain with water coming out of it, and went over to take a drink. And suddenly, as if by magic, there appeared a huge Texas Ranger policeman who had a gun that looked like that, and asked me, what are you doing, boy? And I said, want to get a drink of water. He said, well, you can't drink out of that fountain. You have to drink out of a colored fountain. So I said, okay, there must be something wrong with the water in this particular fountain. So I looked around to see if I could find a colored fountain, one that was not white marble. And I ran all around that Cavernous station, never seen a fountain other than one that was white in color. And I saw that policeman getting ready to leave the station, and I ran to him and said, excuse me, I can't find the fountain that isn't white in color. He said, where are you from, boy? And I told him, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and that as I was saying that, it occurred to me, he's telling me that there is segregation of the fountains and the people who could drink out of the fountains. So I turned around, and sure enough, there was above each fountain, and there must have been a dozen of them in there, white only or colored only. So I went and drank water out of a colored fountain. That was my initial experience with segregation in the South, and it was only the first of many that I would have. Segregation was very subtle in Ann Arbor. There were no signs. We only knew that there were certain places that I was not to go, or anyone who looked like me. It wasn't signs, it was passed down to us by our elders. Stay away from that place because they don't want you there. Don't apply for this kind of a job because they don't want you to have that job. And on and on and on. I had many other experiences like that in the South, non-subtle segregation. Signs that said black, white, and words and tales that suggested that you either obey those signs or you take literally your life in your own hands. Then I was transferred to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. And the signs there were very, very much enforced. This was my introduction and experience with segregation in the United States of America. Now, came back to the United States and decided that I wanted to try higher education. The only thing I knew that I could do was to sing. So I decided I'd try my hand at being a voice major at Michigan State Normal College for Teachers. After 2 years there, I transferred to the University of Michigan, and I went into the voice performance curriculum, where I stayed, earned 2 degrees, enjoyed myself immensely as a bass singer, a student bass singer, and from there made connections that wound up with me having something of a career as a solo performer voice in opera, and the most notable, the most widespread of which was the singing of the role of King Balthazar in the Christmas opera entitled Amal and the Night Visitors by Giancarlo Menotti. My career got a big push out of that. I wound up with a manager, sang in Europe and the United States, in several different countries, even here with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra some 40 years ago, 45 years ago. Went down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to take my first job as a professor of voice at Southern University, at that time one of the largest, if not the largest, African American university in the country. I was hired as a choral conductor and a voice teacher and an opera coach. And I liked that, but my tenure there was somewhat circumscribed because at that time the state of Louisiana began passing very restrictive segregation laws. Performers in an integrated cast could not perform before any public audience in the state of Louisiana, and the state of Louisiana audiences could not view any performers of the opposite race. After 2 years of that, I felt that I needed to get out and find something that was a little less restrictive. Came back to the University of Michigan, went on the doctoral program. After that, we became expectant of our first child, and I then took a job at Virginia State University, at that time Virginia State College, and stayed there for 6 years on a Fulbright fellowship. Went to Europe for a little over a year, came back and was hired at the University of Michigan to be a professor of voice, and wound up being the associate dean of the School of Music.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked you this morning. I have a different group of students with me that need to hear what you said this morning. If there's one thing that you would give students today in frame of civil rights to take out and make today a better place, what would that be?
Today is a totally different day. If you took responsibility for the exercise of your own civil rights and your own sense of pride and ethnic being, in those days you were taking your life in your hand. Today, that's not the case. And today, I think, projecting myself in your place now, you need to take responsibility for your own exercise of being. That includes voting. That includes becoming as well educated as you can and qualified as you can. That includes standing up for what it is that you think is right for yourself, for your races. That includes so much else that is really your responsibility. But change is possible now if you exercise your own options. That is to instill in yourselves a sense of racial pride, a sense of cultural pride, which means you need to know more about yourselves and your history. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
you were talking about your experiences when you were in the South and the segregation. Do you have any experiences with that?
I was
regarding segregation?
born and raised in Louisiana, so, I grew up in a segregated situation. I went to Catholic school for my elementary and high school education. I was not Catholic, but went to Catholic schools and had all black teachers. And then when I went to college, I went to Southern University, which he talked about, and all black teachers once again. So I came to the University of Michigan as a grad student, and that's the first time I had white teachers. I had not had any before. So the segregation that he talks about, I grew up with. So, I knew, what should I say? We knew where to go, where not to go, what was colored, what was white, etc. This was new to him, but not to me.
And in addition to that, if you didn't know, even if you were born there, they were quick to tell you this is non-subtle.
Yeah, it's not subtle in the South. You know where to go, what to do, where you're welcome. Movie theaters, you sat in the balcony, separate entrances, etc. We knew all of that. Yeah, grew up with that.
So regarding the civil rights movement, everything that had happened, do you have any specific event in particular that you find very significant?
I was not a part of demonstrations, etc. Where I was, he speaks of the one at Southern I'm not aware of, probably because I was, I don't know, busy teaching, I have no idea. But needless to say, I did not have the experiences that he had. And he also had co-workers who were part of some of the demonstrations and had been with Martin Luther King Jr. Not I.
How did you feel when Martin Luther King got assassinated? How did you feel as a part of the black community? How did did anything change? Did you feel different?
Well, we were, this just shocked us because we didn't expect the killing, and we knew that he had been, part of the civil rights movement, that he had been with some of the marches, etc. But where I was, we were not a part of that, but we watched everything that he did. And so the killing really took us by surprise and really, really had an effect on us as teachers and students at that time.
Yeah, I was very dramatically affected by that. And I found myself at something of a crossroads because there were demonstrations taking place all over Michigan and Virginia, all over the country, as a reaction to the killing of Martin Luther King. And I found myself having to fight back the urge to join. I'm not a demonstrator, but I was very much tempted to join in.
One more thing. So I know he gave some advice to Mr. DeBard's students. Do you have anything that you could possibly tell the student body?
They should take advantage of all the things that they have here at school. Learn as much as they can. Don't limit it to just one thing. Just because you like math, limit it to math. Learn other subjects, because I found that in teaching, kids change their majors. They'll start off in something and then decide, oh, this is not for me, or they'll get out. I had students who went out and in the business world and then decided they did not want to do that. They would rather teach, and they came back to school, got their teaching certificates, and went out. So my thing is learn as much as you can at this age especially, and don't just limit what you like to what you learn. Get experience in other subjects.
Even music.
Even music, because I said don't just limit yourself to music. I was really just teasing. But the point is that if I knew kids would say to me, why do I have to take math? I don't like math. And I would say, if I knew what you were going to do 10 years down the road, I would maybe suggest no. But I don't know, and I think you need to be well prepared so that if you choose some other subject, you've got the background.